And now it's time to look at what we promised you. The front pages, the stories making the front pages of newspapers all over the world, local, international. And I have here with me Dr. Constance Ikuku. Constance, good morning to you.
Good morning, Indy. How are you this morning?
I'm good.
I hope you had a good weekend.
Tried to have.
Well,
With the situation of things.
Yes, I know. I know. At least we've rested over the weekend. The protests continue today. We'll see how that goes. Okay, to look at the papers this morning, we have with us Dr. Iyobosa Owogaren. He is the editor Nation's Capital of This Day newspaper and secretary of the Nigerian Guild of Editors. Thanks for joining us.
Good morning.
Well, welcome to the program, and we'll begin this morning by looking at This Day newspaper. In This Day, we have the story, Nasima, non-payment of FX forwards pushing companies into bankruptcy. This raises legal and constitutional concerns, and they are calling on Tinubu to wade in to ensure swift resolution. Businesses are now burdened with exorbitant interest rates, averaging over 35%, says the Nigerian Association of Chambers of Commerce, Industry, Mines and Agriculture, NASIMA. This financial strain is damaging the reputation of companies and straining relationships with international trading partners who are perplexed at CBN's failure to honor its commitments. I mean, it's apparent that the CBN is unable or has been unable for a while to meet its obligation in regards to Forex. It has announced severally that it has cleared backlog of Forex commitments, but apparently this is not the case. Well, not in all circumstances, Dr. Owogaren.
Well, like you said, the Forex forwards are liability of the CBN, which are signed off when allocated, and the beneficiaries are the responsible players in the private sectors. I think this transaction happened between 2022 and 2023. But I think the controversy around it, I don't want to believe that the CBN is unable to meet its obligations. I think the controversy over it is that, you remember the CBN governor told Arise some time ago, and that the total liability is about $7 billion. And he said out of that $7 billion, $2.4 billion were not valid. You know, and I think he accused some forces of using fake document to apply for the forest, and on the basis of that, there was going to be a question of whether to pay or not to pay. And don't also forget that there was forensic audit that was carried out by the international audit firm, Deloitte, I think I remember, and that identified those dirty deals within the forest business. So I think the controversy is that the CBN is still insisting that out of that $7 billion, $2.4 billion are not valid. So on the basis of that, they were finding it very difficult to pay. But like some experts said, according to the This Day report, they believe that it's a contract that has been validly signed, and that the CBN has not optioned down to meet that obligations. But let's see how it goes, because the CBN is still insisting that he cannot meet obligations of transactions that were not properly documented or properly carried out.
So yes, so there is a controversy as to whether these are genuine, but Nasima insists that it's a problem for them and that it's going to hamper trust and credibility of companies. So in a country where you want the private sector to thrive, because a lot of the private sector employ Nigerians. So in a situation where they're unable to gain that credibility with their international partners in order to meet these commitments, you want to look at that again or examine the situation again to make sure that this is cleared, right, Indy?
Yeah, you know, the challenge here really is status quo and trying to change the status quo, the way we do business, you know. So it's Cardoso's word against the SMEs and the private sector. He says it's leading to the bankruptcy. When I looked at this story, what just came to my mind is Cardoso trying to change the normal way, in quotes, that people try to do business, which Yobosa was referring to, that he said some of what he found on his decks were not, real, were
not valid.
Valid, yeah, instead of using the word fake, were not valid. So that's why I'm saying it's his word against the OPS,
organized private sector, yes.
Which is which. If that is cleared out of the way, then we can begin to go from there. Yes, the private sector, they have a valid point talking about bankruptcy, and talking about trust, doing business with international people. But we must begin to learn how to do things in the right way. And if that is what Cardoso is trying to achieve, I'm afraid they have to buy in and not doing business the old way. But if they have a point, then both of them have to sit down and iron out this issue so that it's a win-win for both sides.
Well, outside of this, the Forex crisis also mirrors the economic stagnation and general economic crisis that we have in the country, Dr. Wogaren.
Yes, you are right. I think the problem is that we rely on the sales of crude oil to be able to generate forex. Apart from that, there's little we export from Nigeria, maybe a little from agri and other items. But majorly we rely on crude oil for forex. And of course, you know that in the last few months, I think especially in the last 1 year, the sales of crude oil has reduced. I think currently we are producing numbers about 1.3 million barrels a day.
Of which already most of them have been, the cash is not coming because we have this crude resource, crude loan.
Exactly.
Yes.
So, and we rely on sales of crude oil to be able to get these forests. And in the last 1 year, that has reduced, and there's so much pressure on the forest. So until we are able to increase our production of crude oil, I think the experts said that currently we have the capacity to produce about 1.8 million barrels a day. I think if there is a consistent effort on the part of the NNPC and other stakeholders to increase production of crude oil, I think that will generate more funds. And somebody also said recently, so this idea of exchanging crude for other liabilities should stop, because that is also denying us of revenue, especially the forest. So once we are able to do that, and once we are able to get other companies, refineries to be producing in Nigeria and selling in Nigeria, so the pressure on forest will reduce. Because as I speak to you, there's a huge demand for forest by the importers of petroleum product,
Every importer, literally.
Yes, apart from importers of petroleum products, we also have manufacturers who also depend on foreign, depend on raw material from foreign countries to produce.
Pharmaceutical industry,
exactly.
For instance.
So there is huge pressure on the forest. So until we are able to, increase our productions of crude oil and get more revenues from that, it will be difficult to meet some of this demand that we are talking about.
It is in light of this that you might understand why the president had the other day given the directive that crude oil be sold to the Dangote refinery and also in Naira, because you definitely want to reduce that pressure on forex. And you're about to say something.
And other refineries as well, the smaller refineries. I was watching a video. You see, the way we do things in this country, especially at the level of leadership, it befuddles the mind, frankly. I was watching a video over the weekend where Mele Kyari in 2019 promised the nation that before the end of, he said, Baba's tenure, all the 4 refineries will be working.
Well, you mean former President Muhammad Buhari,
when you refer
to Baba, yes.
Former President Buhari. But before the end of his tenure, that all the 4 refineries will be working. And when I looked at that, this is 2024, 5 years on, I just wonder in my head, what goes through our leaders, their minds, and their think? Do they call us fools Why would you say such a thing? This is 5 years on. He even repeated that last year, if you remember, that by December last year or around there, I think about 2 refineries will be working. Here we are.
So, yes.
And it's not working. And you're wondering, why is he still there? Why do you... I mean, their stock, don't make a promise if you can't fulfill it.
Right.
We can understand that there are vagaries, you know, something might not. But why go ahead and make a promise if you can't fulfill it? If you make the promise, then people should be able to hold you accountable to the things you said, just like politicians coming on board and promising us that, look, we're going to do this, That's what, I mean, all over the world in democracies, that's what the voters or the citizens capitalize on and vote you out.
Right.
Like it happened to Labour. It happened to... the conservatives in America. Those kind of things...
No, in the United Kingdom.
Sorry, in the United Kingdom.
Yes.
Those kind of things should really... Leaders should be able to pay for it. Get out if you cannot achieve it. Whatever the issues are, the people who voted you don't want to know. You are there to solve problems.
Okay, so the Forex issue continues. Let's move on to Guardian newspaper. In the Guardian, we'll be looking at the story, outrage over rehash of old policies, threats, failure to soothe protesters. This is in regard to the protesters, the president's address yesterday. He addressed the nation by 7 a.m. as requested after days of end bad governance protest. But many were less than impressed by the president after the speech. What do you think, Yebosa or Dr. Wagaren? There was nothing markedly different from what the ministers had been saying for at least 1 week, 1 to 2 weeks before that speech was given yesterday.
Well, depending on the angle you want to look at it, I've read so many comments for and against over the speech. For me, in the way I look at it, the speech has some strengths, some weaknesses. The strength is that President Bola Tinubu admitted that there's problem in this country, and that he also emphasized the need for unity and cooperations so that they could tackle the issue. But I think in the other aspect of it is that he didn't show empathies in that speech, and there was no concrete or specific arrangement to be able to address some of the issues that the protesters are raising. Some people said he rehearsed his own achievement and all that. But I think the way I look at it, in an attempt to, although the speech was not properly put together by those who wrote that speech, but in an attempt to explain...
What do you mean by it wasn't properly put together?
Let me explain. In an attempt to tell Nigerians what he's doing or what he has done, to respond to some of those issues that the protesters are raising. It looks as if he was talking as if he was still campaigning, So I think that was where the point I'm raising. As a matter of fact, what he was trying to do was trying to explain to Nigerians what he's doing or what he has done, to respond to some of those issues that the protesters are raising. Like I said, I've listened to those who condemn his speech, but one thing I find very difficult to understand in those condemnations is that none of them, condemned the violent aspect of that protest.
Shoyinka did.
We'll come to show you.
Yes, what he was talking about was the action of the police, and the fact that the action of the police, and the fact that the president did not, kind of criticize them for that action. But the point I'm making is that while we are also criticizing the president for not, meeting the expectations of the protesters, I think leaders should also condemn the violent aspect of that protest. Because that was not the intention. That was not the intention of the protest.
It was a protest.
Yes, I want to get in. I on that score, I would totally agree. I mean, the reason, but mind you, it was not everywhere that we had violence. Yeah. It was especially in the north. I mean, when I read the story of why the police came in because people were going to loot. Immediately I saw looting, I said, that's not the idea of protesting. But then again, when Shoyinka was talking, he said, take an example of the yellow vest in France. Let me even bring it down to our level. I was watching the protest yesterday on, I think it was BBC. The police were going back when the protesters were coming forward, even pushing them. Nobody shot a bullet. Nobody. And even their protest was not what we have in Nigeria. They were some of them were, protesting against migrants. It was illegal, sort of. Yet the police did not shoot anybody. The accusation against the president, I mean, we've talked about the fact that looting is off the table. Violence is off the table. There is no place for violence in a democracy. It's about protest. You're trying to tell the leaders that, look, we're not satisfied with how you're leading us or what you're doing. But then we should get to a place in this country where the police and security authorities must understand that these are citizens. You do not have any reason to shoot at citizens and kill citizens.
So it goes to the point of using live bullets.
Yes.
You remember that we had the Commissioner of Police of the Federal Capital Territory here. There were about 2 weeks ago, last week. We did ask him whether his men were going to use live bullets, and what he said was that, well, if they shoot at us, we will shoot at them. So it is a practice that this is done. But the other thing...
I've not even landed. Now, when I watched that speech, now personally, I was piqued. I was piqued. One, the body language was... It was like he was talking down on the people. That's one, And then where the president says, do not take away the oxygen from the economy that is growing. And I was at a loss. I said, I'll probably ask economic experts, what are the indices for saying that an economy is improving? Everything seems to be going down the drain. People are already suffering, and you say the economy is growing. And then look at the list. For example, it says what they are asking. Electoral reforms, including autonomy for INEC, reforms of ESSC, emergency, state of emergency on inflation, reform of judiciary, public schools, that those who are in offices should get their awards to attend pub. Not one was addressed by the president.
Right.
And how do you say you hear them loud and clear?
Right.
It was really annoying to the protesters.
Well, some of the protesters have also said that in all that he said plenty but said nothing, especially with regard to cutting the cost of government and offloading the number of cabinet ministers that he has and special advisors. I think what many people have said, that if he had said something to this effect, there will be, a feeling or a sense that the president and his team are also sacrificing as much as Nigerians are, or they are asking Nigerians to sacrifice. So that's one point.
It was just like the president didn't care.
Right.
From that speech.
Well, that's a perception that Nigerians got.
That's your own perception about the whole...
when you watch it.
Okay, let's move on to Daily Telegraph. Daily Telegraph this morning, I think this goes on to the protest again. Soyinka condemns Tinubu's silence on police crackdown on protesters. So the Nobel laureate condemned the use of live bullets by the police. It said, and I quote, "Such short-changing civic deserving regrettably goes to arm the security forces."
Sorry, which paper are they asking?
Daily Telegraph.
Daily Telegraph.
Daily Telegraph. So Soyinka says that to arm the security forces in the exercise of impunity, and condemns the nation to a seemingly unbreakable cycle of resentment reprisals. I mean, Professor Soyinka, who turned 90 recently, is always a voice that dwarfs other voices. When he speaks, people listen. And I think some might be surprised that he came out with this condemnation, because he has been a supporter of President Tinubu. But here we go. The Nobel laureate says that what the security forces have done during this protest is unacceptable. Dr. Wogiaren.
Yes, I agree with you that no matter the provocation, the security agencies, especially the police, has no right whatsoever to use live bullets on protesters. Some would even argue that even when you use tear gas, it is unacceptable. But that is something you can also
actually he
debate.
did say it in that speech that
yes.
It's even questionable to use tear gas on protesters.
Well, that is debatable. But the point I'm making is that in some part of the country where the protest was very peaceful, I'll give you an example: Edo, Port Harcourt, Delta, and to some extent Lagos. No live bullets were used in those areas, because the protesters were very peaceful, and they stick to the plan, to the organizations of the protest, and at the end of the day, there was no need to use live bullet. Then where you can make reference to is some northern part of the country, some state in the northern part of the country, especially Kano, Kaduna, Borno,
yes.
and Yobe
Yobe.
and all that, where people abandoned the protests, and some criminally minded people took over the protests, and they were looting private property, destroying properties of both innocent people and government properties and all that. For me, that was criminal in nature. And if there's a way, I don't know whether there's a way the police could have responded to that without even using live bullet. Because at the end of the day, even the protesters were even charging at the security agencies in an attempt to also harm them.
Right.
So I think that is the point. And at the end of the day, police are also human beings too, even though they are charged with responsibilities of also managing the protesters. They are human beings, they are families.
Well, there is a
even if you also look at even if you also look at what is happening in UK, the one you make reference to,
we'll come to
which
that,
we'll
please.
come to that later.
We'll come to that later.
You know, when some street gang, some criminals now resort to looting, destroying properties, harming people, innocent people, then the security agencies also have a responsibility to react to that. Okay. But I think that they should have managed it better rather than using live bullets. But at the end of the day, the actions of those violent protesters is also condemnable, because in some states where they were peaceful, there was no live bullet use.
No, that's not debatable, Yobosa. It's not debatable. It's a protest, not criminality. But the thing is that maybe because of what we're coming from military, all over the world, it's anachronistic to begin to get the security aid, because for God's sake, you have gun. They don't have gun. They don't carry guns. You have gun. And it kills. So the talk is either get, what do you call it? Pellets that are not live bullets. It's about reorientation. It's about training. It's about moving from where we are to another level, a better level, where security agencies are taught to know that you should not shoot live bullets at people. We must get to that place.
Well, I'm not
fashioning that.
Dr. Wogera, we're running out of time. There is a fine balance between maintaining law and order and then going after criminals. I think that's what we're dealing with here. But let's move on to Vanguard newspaper. IBB disowns post endorsing military rule, says democracy has come to stay. The so-called endorsement was a parody account on X, formerly known as Twitter. The account carries IBB's picture, the coat of arms, and seems to be genuine. But IBB's media handler has asked Nigerians to ignore this. It's not true. So, the ills of the internet and the problem of fake news, that's what we're dealing with here. There's also videos of young people in the north, carrying placards and asking for Russia to intervene militarily in Nigeria. You have all this going on, but IBB has come out and said, I'm not the one, this is not my account, and I'm not calling for military to take over in Nigeria. Your thoughts, Dr. Wogera?
Yeah, like I said, it's fake news. And, fake news has a way of spreading like a wildfire. And you remember that even the problem we have in UK today is caused by fake news. Some people thought the killings or the stabbings of those children were done by a Muslim, and before you know it, people started attacking mosques, started attacking people and all that. So fake news is dangerous from all ramifications, the way you look at it. Now, as for those people in the north who are calling for the military interventions, I said it some time ago, and that most of these youths who are protesting now were born after 1999. Many of them have never witnessed military regime, the bad effects of the military regime, how we suffered during the military regimes, how we're able to fight to be able to push the military back to the barracks and have what we have.
That affected you very well.
Yes, exactly, have what we have today. And I keep on saying that the only way we can avoid that, the only way we can avoid these children celebrating military regime is to market democracies to them. We must be able to let them know that democracy has some dividends.
And talking about
unless we market it to them, yes.
Talking about marketing democracy, talking about marketing democracy, there is a reason why so many people feel like the so-called democracy is not improving their lives, and that's why we saw the military coups in Mali, Niger, Burkina Faso, and people were celebrating it because they think that the military government will probably be better than the so-called democracy. You
Constance, you just took the words out of my mouth. That was going to be my response. You just took it out of my mouth. I was just going to call those West African countries, Mali, Niger, that what causes, the question to ask is, what causes military incursions into democracies? Is bad governance. We're not supporting, I think someone, what I was thinking about somebody that said the worst democracy is better than the best military. Dictatorship, you know. Yeah, dictatorship, it's anachronistic, it's outmoded all over the world. Nobody wants strong men again. Nobody wants military. But then the arrow was pointing back to Africa, African leaders to begin to really govern their people in such a way that the people can feel the dividends of democracy and not cry like Yobosu said, the people who are crying. I was actually in a car that was driving me back one day, and the young man was saying, in fact, let's just go to war and get this over with. There's nothing to... I say, young man.
Yeah, war is not...
I say, young man,
it's not that palatable.
I don't think you saw war. If you witness war, you wouldn't be saying, we see, it's so annoying. I said, war is not the solution. If you see it, you won't even be driving the car you're driving now. So it is for our leaders to get together and begin to think. It's about service, that mentality, that orientation, not about rulership, about service. What is a minister is called a minister because he wants to serve the people. Until our leaders begin to understand this, you might have some pockets crying for military, even though it's not the best form of governance, because then you have no freedom in military.
Is it sorry, just a little interventions. So the point I'm making is that it is not democracies that is bad. It is the actors.
Yeah, no, not democracy that's bad. It is the
actors.
People.
So there is no way we're going to suggest that some people will say, oh, we better have military JD than to have democracies. No. All we need to do is to see how we can deepen that democratic process, so that at the end of the day we produce the best, that will run these democracies. Otherwise, we'll have problems. And that's why I keep on saying that we need to let people know that there is beauty in democracies, and there are dividends of democracies if it is properly run by decent and responsible people.
And that's why one of their cries, is making the INEC or the electoral body
reformed,
independent of, because he that pays the piper dictates the tune.
Because if we have the kind of people we have in National Assembly today, who keep on talking about, while you are protesting, we will be eating. I mean,
change national anthem.
Some people like that cannot be a good examples of those who should market democracies to Nigerians.
Or for God's sake,
we need to have responsible people.
Or for God's sake, one of the we'll just go for break. One of the National Assembly leaders bought an SUV vehicle
for the daughter.
For a daughter who just
graduating
came out
from
of
secondary
school.
So for me, that
even if it's your money,
it's obscene.
All right, we'll take a break and be back in a bit. Stay with us. Glad to have you back. We're still discussing the papers, both local and international, and I still have here with me Constance and, of course, Yobas. Constance.
We'll have a new telegraph again this morning. Tinubu's government racing hard to win populace. Investors Trust, OPS. The OPS is the organized private sector. So the OPS was referring to the president's national broadcast yesterday. They said government needs to buckle up and restore confidence in Nigerians. I think that goes for us saying everybody knows that this has to be done. Dr. Wagaran.
I agree with him totally. When you have a government, that is saying something and the other top government officials are doing different thing entirely, and there's no way you're going to be able to get the trust of Nigerians. Like we said, the SOX is the message. You can't have a president who is telling Nigerians to tighten their belts because of the harsh economic environment we find ourselves in Nigeria today, which they also attribute to the global economic policies. Meanwhile, you're having a situation where a vice president of this country renovated his house or built his house for almost about 22 billion.
Well, it's not exactly his house. It's a house for vice presidents. It's not his personal property.
It doesn't matter.
But it doesn't take away from your
we
point.
had a vice president's house which was occupied by Atiku, by Simbajo, by Abri. So what is wrong with that?
No, we're just making the point that it's not his personal property. But yes,
that
Nigerians,
was,
were very upset.
At the point we're having these economic challenges, that was not our priority. I mean, you can also have a government that is asking us to bear with the government when you have billions of naira being spent to buy cars for members of the National Assembly, when you have billions of naira being spent to buy cars for ministers and all that.
Hajj too.
Yeah, so when most ministers are taking private jet to go to their states almost on a weekly basis. So when you find yourself in that kind of situation, how do you convince ordinary Nigerians who is unable to feed just once a day, to tighten his belt because you want them to bear with you because you are carrying out some economic policies that will resolve the problem that we are currently facing? I think that is the problem we are facing. So the government need to say something and also behave, along that line.
Say what, do what it says.
Do what you said and not the other way around. Yes. I think that is the problem we're having in Nigeria today.
Preacher, preach and do what you preach. Constance, Forex, let me just ask this question. Is there anything wrong? Will the government fall? Will the people leading us change their height or whatever if they start using made in Nigerian goods, cars and whatever? That's one of the things that protesters are asking. The marketers, the OPS here, they're saying issues of mistrust and lack of confidence in the government's performance. The major issue that Nigerians have with their government, both it's not just the federal government, both at the federal level and the local level, is that of mistrust and confidence. I just mentioned Mele Kyari, who said 4 years' time, before the end of Buhari's, that the refineries will be working. Not one is working. Last year, he said the same thing. Not one is still working. So it borders on mistrust and confidence. Our leaders, like you pointed out, and then you talk about Hajj, paying this amount of money, and then sending their awards abroad. And while our health system is in comatose, education system, they're also asking for reduction. In the other day, we're talking about 80,000. Why should institutions be on band A, for example? I don't understand it.
Right. Okay, so the Director General of NASIMA also, let's hear what he said specifically, and I quote, "I think it is not really about the national broadcast or eloquent things he said in his speech, but it's for people and Nigerians to believe in his rulership again." I mean, essentially, he's talking about believability. Can you believe the president of the country when he speaks, when he says something? Do you think that he's saying the truth? Do you have a sense that he's really sitting down in Aso Villa working in your interest, or is he just talking, making political talk for the sake of talking? Dr. Wogaren. How can the president and his team be believed? The problem is that it started from the outcome of that elections. There was this legitimate crisis. I was going to say that.
There was this legitimate crisis. I thought after the court has asked that he should be sworn in as the president of Nigeria as a result of these questionable elections that we all witnessed across the country, one would have thought that the man would begin to do certain things, to get the buy-in of so many Nigerians. But he started on a very bad note. I remember when he was at the Go Square, he said, subsidies is gone. And that was the beginning of the problem we have in Nigeria today. And coupled with the unifications of
floating of the naira.
Floating of the naira. So I think that is the problem. So when you have a government, a president that lack legitimacy from day one, coupled with his bad economic policies, and there's no way you are going to trust that person. And so it's not tactical. It's not well organized in the way it is handling so many issues. Because at the end of the day, the reason why you are in government is to be able to meet the needs of the people, to be able to better the life of Nigerians, whether they voted for you or not. But unfortunately, he's not doing that, right. And it's lacking. It's not focused. It lacks directions. It lacks the policies, and even the people that he assembled to be able to drive that policy with him, most of them are not even competent to be deputy directors in ministries and parastatals. So that is a problem. So but for me, I don't think it's too late for him. He should reorganize his cabinet. He should refocus his economic policies and program and see how he can serve the interests of the people. Otherwise, we keep on having this problem of lack of trust.
As we were saying when we were on break about the entire optics of the broadcast, we were saying that he used to sit down when he spoke to Nigerians. Yesterday, it was totally different. He was standing up. In my view, it looked a bit better that he was standing because he usually would couch when he was sitting down. So this gave him, an opportunity to stand up, straight and speak to Nigerians. Well, that may not matter much. It's the content or the substance of the speech that matters. But at the same time, optics is a bit of something.
It does matter. I mean, you disagreed with Yobasa on that. Yobasa felt that he's standing the way he was standing. He was like talking down on the people. But again, it's a matter of perception. But the point here is optics and, like Yobasa said,
and substance, yes.
Yeah, kind of starting off on a wrong note. See, leadership is about trying to win the people. Nothing else. It's about getting the people to buy into your policies. It's as simple as it's not about you. I think the moment our leaders begin to understand that it is not about them, what we are witnessing in Africa and in Nigeria especially is, you remember when Obasanjo went to Anambra State during Dr. Mbadi, the news time, when civil servants were not paid 9 months' salary. And Obasanjo opened his mouth and said, "You should be glad that I'm here." What is that? Who are you? You're somebody elected. The government is not you. The government belongs to the people. They are the government. So until our leaders begin to understand that it is not about them, it's about the people, we will keep on seeing these optics and this talking down and all that.
Right.
And it won't change anything, really.
Okay, let's go to Punch newspaper. Hardship states get 570 billion naira grant. This grant is for 36 states to support their citizens. This was announced by the president yesterday. Again, moving the focus on states and the appropriate use of funds that flows to that level of government. All the stories we've been talking about this morning, it's always the president, and the government. Well, the federal government receives the lion's share of revenue from the country, but the states also receive a substantial amount of that money, which should also go to the local government. So here we have states receiving this huge amount of money during this time. The question will be, how will they use it? Dr. Wogara.
Sometimes I get peace when I hear presidents sending money to states, because at the end of the day, when they share the federal allocation, the federal government gets its own, the local government and the state. So why sharing your own with the state government, who also have a responsibility to also better the life of their people? Why use your money to also, assist them? They should be able to also generate their funds, use part of the money they are getting from federal allocations to also execute so many projects in various states. And that is why some governors, just relax. They believe that they don't own their people any responsibility. They believe that if there's a problem of economy, if there's a problem of agri, it is the responsibility of the federal government. If there's a problem of insecurity, it is the problem of the federal government. They don't think that they have responsibilities to discharge to their people. For me, I'm not cool with that. I think the federal government should be able to find a way to execute projects in whatever he wants to do in different states rather than sending the money to the state government. Because at the end of the day, this money don't get to the people. Look at the palliatives that they sent to the federal government sent to the various states. Some of the governors are keeping it in their warehouse for the purpose of election. They keep it there, maybe during the election, they rebrand it and begin to distribute to the people, believing that they are the one who is giving out the palliatives. So I think the point I'm making is that... Isn't
this where the responsibility of the citizens of the states come in? Because even the citizens are always looking at the federal government. Do you ask your state governors what they are doing with your funds?
Absolutely correct, Constance. Again, I think
maybe lack of awareness.
It's not lack of
where
it's not lack of it's again the system we're running. Everything is concentrated at the federal level.
At the center.
Maybe, just maybe, if there is federalism, true federalism, maybe these things will begin to change. So the citizens themselves are also thinking the way everyone is thinking, federal. Because actually the states have a lot of role to play in bettering the lives of their citizens. Sometimes you could even say that this protest should even be focused at the state levels, the state governors, the state commissioners. What are they doing?
Right. Very poignant question. Let's move on to the international headlines this morning and see what we have for you. Daily Express. Rioters storm migrant hotel. That's in the UK. A far-right mob attempting to burn down a hotel housing migrants and asylum seekers. And they were condemned by politicians from all sides. Sir Keir Starmer, who is the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, described their behavior as organized violent thuggery and said they would regret taking part when they face the full force of the law. Rishi Sunak also said this has no place in our society. The thugs smashed their way into the Holiday Inn Express in Rotherham. I mean, the rise and spread of far-right groups across Europe, we thought it was in France, in Sweden, in Netherlands, but now we're seeing it in the UK. Although the PM is firm and, he spoke tough, people, especially migrants in the UK, seems a bit shaken, Dr. Wogaren.
Yes, I think that is a product of fake news, like we already said some time ago. And, when people started protesting over the stabbings of those children, they had a genuine case. It was a very good protest. But what happened, like we also witnessed in Nigeria here, along the line, some street gang, hijacked the protest.
This is not street gang, Wogiaran. These are normal young British people. This is now become a riot. They are not gangs.
No, the Prime Minister, hold on. The Prime Minister described them
thuggery.
Those thuggery and street gang. He used that word street gang. I read it in newspapers. He said they are street gangs. Some criminal-minded people took over the protest. Hold on, Constance. I'm not. It's not my words. It's what I read in the UK newspapers, and that was attributed to the Prime Ministers. When the Prime Minister is talking, he's talking tough. I mean, he was pissed with what is happening. What started as a peaceful protest, was hijacked and became violent. And you don't forget, you talk about the way police were managing the riot, and it's on record as at yesterday, almost about 20 police have been injured. So many houses have been burned, so many properties have been looted. And that is why you saw the Prime Minister yesterday speaking very tough and said, those who are responsible will pay dearly for it. Nobody, no leaders in the world will tolerate what is going on in the UK. I think that is the problem I'm trying to make. So the words I'm using, street gang, is not my... I didn't fabricate
creation.
Yes. It is the speech that was attributed to the Prime Minister yesterday by some newspapers.
So when you look at the riots, it's a lot of young people actually in their teens, causing this riot. So you had it in Bolton, Middlesbrough, Yorkshire, and more than 140 arrests have been made and counting.
Now this is the problem.
Descending into anarchy.
This is the problem with extremism. This is occasioned by far right. It's good to be on the right. It's good to be on the left. But when you are now far right or far left, extremism sets in. And that is what is provoking this kind of movement. Kestama describes it as thuggery. Even Yvette Cooper has said that people who are responsible for this will pay. So it's a problem of fake news, one, and then extremism, far right. I mean, you can't just up and then begin to just carry out disobey the law and begin to do things wrongly. That's where, again, this issue of far right has to be whittled down, because almost all the time, the migrants seem to bear the brunt of it as if they were the cause of the problem. That's what I have to say on that particular
I think a lot of crisis. So now what is happening is that people are being targeted according to the color of their skin, according to their faith. You also saw people showing up at mosque and trying to protect that mosque because protesters were going to destroy them, and alluding that all the problems they have is because of migrants. And that's where you see newspapers using the far right. It's now, it's now gone into the general narrative in Europe that migrants have to leave their shores because they are causing a lot of problems. They are taking their jobs. They're not obeying their laws. Their prisons are full of migrants. So that rhetoric is what the Prime Minister is now trying to fight against.
You remember that it was this same rhetoric that occasioned the January 6th storming of Washington. And today, even Trump is not even deviating from it. Yes, I was watching him this morning when he called Kamala Harris crazy. Why would a leader use such language?
The Prime Minister said yesterday that what the actions of what is happening in the UK, I mean, it's not a true reflection of who they are.
Yes.
Yes. I think UK is one of a country that accommodates all kinds of people. We have seen so many migrants who became
They're mostly always the people who make the country what it is.
Even prime ministers.
No, the former prime minister was Rishi Sunak.
Absolutely.
Migrants.
So what are they talking about? Are the migrant?
Obama was a migrant.
Are the program of the UK?
His parent. His
father.
Yes,
his father. That's what I'm saying.
Yes.
His father.
Okay.
So I think, like I said, these are products of people, extremists, like you said, who have no focus on how to bank on peaceful protest.
Let's look at Daily Telegraph. Royal Navy ships on standby in Middle East over fears of war. I mean, embassies have been asking their nationals to leave Lebanon as fast as they can. And that was because the crisis in that region is degenerating since the killing of the senior commander of Hezbollah and also a senior leader of Hamas. So the crisis between Israel, Palestine, now it's Lebanon, it's now three-way, and the region is about to explode. And we're seeing now that Navy ships are on standby in the Middle East. Anything can happen, Dr. Wogiarin.
For example, I watched in some foreign television stations yesterday. I was shocked. I almost shed tears with the kind of pictures I was seeing, especially in Gaza. And the most offensive aspect of these things is that at the end of the day, it is the media and the children that are paying huge price for what is happening, especially in Gaza. It's on record that since this war started between Gaza and Israel, about 161 journalists have been killed. Has been killed, and many children have been killed as a result of the war.
39,000. Yesterday was about 25.
Yeah. So my position is that
now it's gone to Lebanon.
Yes.
The crisis,
my position is that this is a failure of the leadership of the United Nations. The mandate of the United Nations when it was created in 1945 after the Second World War was to be able to have a union that will maintain peace, prevent war, among members state. But unfortunately over the year, that organization has failed woefully, have not been able to rise up to his responsibilities.
Right.
So the fact that there is war going on virtually in the middle, in Gaza, in so many countries around the world, is a failure on the part of the United Nations, and there's no excuse for that at all.
There's crisis everywhere. In Venezuela, the opposition leader is leading marches. In Bangladesh, more than 50 killed in anti-government protests. We have about a minute here. Your thoughts?
Yeah, man. You remember Fela, the late icon, saying there's no unity in United Nations. United Nations rubbish. They're supposed to be united, but I think they're more disunited now than ever.
But
all right.
The big countries call the shots.
That's the problem.
In the Security Council, so they decide what happens.
That's the problem.
The United Nations is
so what is the purpose of calling the shop when they cannot maintain peace and order?
Well, we have to rethink it.
All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Constance Ikoku and Yobasa Wujere. Thank you for being here on Daybreak. And that's what we'll have for you this morning. Next will be the morning show. And like here every day indeed does matter. Have a wonderful Monday. I am Ndi Amugu, thanking you for watching.